Retro.
Hi, this is Vanessa Marshall, voice of Hera and Rook Cast, and you're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. Their behavior is continually unexpected.
All right, this is Podcast Stardust, the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley, and normally I'm joined by my friend and co-host Jay Krebs, but unfortunately Jay's been called away for some travel, and she won't be around for the next few episodes, but not to worry, she'll be rejoining us soon enough. This will be our normally weekly roundup of Star Wars news. I'm going to tell you right now, normally I rely on having Jay to talk to, and so this may not be the usual 20 or 30 minute episode that you're used to, but we'll see what happens. I just want to remind y'all, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust if you want to reach out before we get started. And with that, the dish is aligned, the signal's boosted to maximum output, the shield is down, we are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So up first, in movie news, Jamie Allen White was speaking with Good Morning America as he is on the publicity tour for the Bruce Springsteen movie he's starting in called Deliver Me From Nowhere, and he was asked about his role in The Mandalorian and Grogu, and he said it was exciting, it's funny. I met Jon Favreau, who directed the film and the series prior, and I've been such a huge fan of John's for a very long time, so we've talked about movies, and I asked about Swingers, and he said, would you like to come in and maybe talk about doing a voiceover for Star Wars? I love Star Wars. I'd be happy to. And then in the moment almost, I discovered the weight of the character I was voicing. But it's been a fun process. I came in to do the voice. They hadn't filmed the movie yet. They made the movie. I came and did more. I'll probably have to do a little bit more. I spoke to Pedro the other day, and I think he was doing some more work and seeing more of the film. I'm very excited to take my kids to see that one. I think it's going to be really fun. So if you haven't heard, this might be the spoiler part of this. Jeremy Allen White, who we all know from The Bear, is set to play Rotta the Hutt. So that is Jabba the Hutt's son. I don't know if the Hutts actually have genders, but regardless. And we've been seeing little bits and pieces of Rotta in the teaser trailer that came out. So this will be interesting. I have to admit, I'm not terribly familiar with his work. I haven't really been watching anything that he's doing, but it is always fun, as Jay and I like to say, when the people starring in a Star Wars movie happen to be fans of Star Wars. And the fact that he wants to take his kids to see it is also a nice touch. So again, that'll be coming out, The Mandalorian and Grogu, that is, will be coming out on May 22nd, 2026. New York Comic Con has come and gone, and Lucasfilm had a publishing panel at that event. We have a number of reveals from there. I'm not going to get into all of them. I'm going to get into the ones that are more story-driven, as those are the things that Jay and I like to talk about the most. The panel was hosted by Jennifer Heddle, and it featured authors Kwame Mbalia, Charles Soule, who you all know we are very fond of here for his work on Darth Vader and the High Republic, Ethan Sachs, who's been involved in the comics, same with Mark Guggenheim was there, Adam Christopher, who is the author of Shadows of the Sith, and Kristen Baver, who has written all kinds of things for Star Wars and done a lot of work on StarWars.com. Among the announcements, and probably the biggest one there, was Legacy, and this is an upcoming novel written by Madeline Rue, which will be arriving July 28th, 2026. She is writing a book about Leia and Rey, set between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. A little bit of background on Madeline Rue, because I have to admit I was not terribly familiar with her. First off, she is a big Star Wars fan. She has a sleeve tattoo which features Leia and Rhea. Got to find that out on StarWars.com. Her previous Star Wars work is a short story she wrote for A Certain Point of View, Star Wars A New Hope. It was the Eclipse story, which featured Brer Organa before the Death Star destroyed Alderaan. She's also known for her Asylum series, which has sold over 1 million copies worldwide. She's got 20 books to her name, including titles for teens, adults, and children, and she has also done work for World of Warcraft, Dungeons & Dragons, and Critical Role, so this seems like a natural extension for her. Some of the details that have been shared about the book, either in the, you can find these in the StarWars.com article about the Lucasfilm Publishing Panel, or in the separate article that they wrote, which is an interview a bit with Madeline Rue, is that this book is Leia and Rey kind of navigating their new relationship after Ben Solo rejected the call to the light in The Last Jedi. Luke passed away in that movie. He became one with the Force, I think is more accurate to say. And so they have to set about repairing the broken Skywalker lightsaber and repairing the shattered legacy of the Jedi Order. Interestingly enough, during the course of the interview, she mentioned that Leia and Rey are not in a good place with one another at the beginning. So that's kind of interesting. I kind of thought they would have hit it off from the get-go. But regardless, for those of you that are big Old Republic fans, apparently they'll be visiting the planet Tython, which you actually also got to see in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. That was where Grogu was kind of meditating and reaching out in the Force to the Jedi when the Empire, or what's left of it, under Moff Gideon and the Dark Troopers showed up and kidnapped him from Din Djarin. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting story. I'm looking forward to this one. I think that era of Star Wars is still ripe for a lot of storytelling, and it's not received a whole lot, but now that Lucasfilm has got a direction going forward with their stories taking place after the Rise of Skywalker, I think they can now have a little bit more freedom to go back in and fill in some of that, some of the blanks that take place during the sequel trilogy and right around there. It's a relatively sparse area of the Star Wars timeline, so this will be an interesting addition. Also announced at the publishing panel at New York Comic Con was Eyes Like Stars, which is an upcoming young adult book by Ashley Poston, who I admit I am not familiar with either. This is being described as the first official Star Wars romance novel. It is further described as occurring 1.5 years before The Force Awakens. It will feature all new characters, a mysterious artifact, and the fearsome First Order, and it's arriving summer 2026. And if I forgot to mention it, yeah, the other book is also coming out in summer 2026, July 28th. I'm not sure about this one. I am generally not a fan of romance novels. The closest thing I think we've had in the past is Claudia Gray's Lost Stars, which had some romance elements to it. But they're calling this one the first official romance novel. So at any rate, I don't know what that means. If that means that they're going to lean in more into the romance elements than what we've seen before. It's not like Star Wars has been without romance elements. I mean, think of Han and Leia for the most part. Or for you Legends fans, think of Jaina and Jag Fell and Anakin Solo and Tahira Vela and Luke and Mara and other stories with Han and Leia. So it's not like romance is a foreign concept to Star Wars, but to have something specifically designated as a romance novel, interesting. I'm going to have to get more information on this as it gets closer to release next summer before I decide whether I'm going to read this one or not. It's, not everything Star Wars has to be for me. Jay and I have said that frequently over the years, but this may be something I pass on. We'll have to find out. The one book I'm going to talk about a bit that is not a narrative tale is The Art of the Mandalorian and Grogu. This is by Phil Sostak, who's been doing this type of work for some time. He's worked with Lucasfilm and ILM quite a bit. This will be a book about the concept and creation of the visual elements of the first big screen adventure for the Clan of Two, Mandalorian and Grogu. It will also include a look back at Season 3 of The Mandalorian and some of the moments from the Book of Boba Fett. So for those of you who are behind-the-scenes fans, this one will be a must-get from what they showed us on StarWars.com and at the Comic-Con panel, and it will be available on September 1st, 2026. I'm very intrigued by the next announcement that they made, and that is Star Wars Visions Tsukomo. And I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's a Japanese name, Tsukomo. This is a new manga spawning out of the Visions series. We're about to get Season 3 of Visions here at the end of this month. And it is described, the story is described as, in the wake of Order 66, a lone Jedi Knight accompanies a pair of droids to a rumored droid's paradise while being pursued by the Empire. And this is coming out on July 14th of next year. So summer's going to be busy based on this release schedule that they're giving us here. You got to go to StarWars.com and check out the cover for this thing. It looks like we got a Jedi wearing some version of a clone trooper or stormtrooper type of a helmet. It's very, very cool imagery. I'm very, very intrigued by this little blurb. Jay and I like to cover some of the manga that comes out from time to time. We've done some of that for the High Republic. So I expect this is something that we'll probably be covering on the show in the second half of 2026. But we'll see as we get more details about that. Also kind of exciting is that we got the news that the High Republic adventures are continuing. Now, I haven't read many of these, as this is kind of more of a younger reader, maybe young adult. I don't want to say younger reader as middle grade, but it's the comics that Dark Horse were doing alongside the comics that Marvel was doing for the High Republic. And this story is being described as a new team of Pathfinders are being sent to a far corner of the galaxy to investigate the death of a Jedi Master. So it's taking place 20 years after the events of Phase 2 of the High Republic. And those were some cool characters that we just didn't get a chance to, most of them we didn't get a chance to see much. There's a few that made it to Phase 3, which was 150 years later. Again, written by George Mann, who had quite a hand in Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the High Republic, so that's promising. I liked his work. And I'm just glad to see that storytelling in the High Republic era is not done, that they've got other stories to tell us. And this is cool. That gives them a chance to get away from the Nile. It gives them a chance to get away from the Nameless. It gives them a chance to get away from Marchion Ro and tell other stories with some of these characters. I'm assuming there'll be some new ones as well, as it is 20 years after Phase 2. But getting back to the High Republic setting is something to look forward to. And finally, the last story I'm going to cover from New York Comic Con's publishing panel is that there is a one-shot featuring Jar Jar Binks coming from Marvel. And I didn't catch the date on when this is going to get released, but it's not only about Jar Jar Binks, it's being written by Jar Jar Binks, none other than Ahmed Best. At least he's going to be the co-author with Mark Guggenheim, who's got a lot of Star Wars work under his belt. And if it's not enough that it features Jar Jar Binks, it's also going to feature Ahmed Best's other character, Kelleran Beck, who we've got to see in The Mandalorian and Grogu. He is the sabered hand, the Jedi lightsaber master. So, very, very cool. That's a character I think that is ripe for more development, ripe for more use. The last time we saw him, he was whisking Grogu away from the Jedi Temple. And that's it. We don't know what happened to him afterwards, but at least now we know he's going to get into some sort of an adventure with Jar Jar Binks. I'm really curious how that is going to go, because Jar Jar, of course, was around for the Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. Kelleran Beck, like I said, last time we saw him, he was escaping the Jedi Temple. I suppose they could set this story during any time of the Clone Wars, but I get the feeling that maybe this is going to be a post-Clone Wars adventure. So we'll have to keep our eyes open for this one and see what happens. Okay, moving on. In Star Wars video game news, do y'all remember Star Wars Eclipse? Maybe not. Who could blame you if you didn't? This was a video game that was originally announced as being in development in 2021. And here we are 4 years later, and there's been virtually no news on its development. Now, there's a bit of controversy about the development studio behind this. I'm not going to get into that. It's easy to find online if you want to learn more about that. But this was a game that was in development from Quantic Dream. And again, it was first announced in 2021. There was a teaser trailer out for it that had a bunch of drumming going on, and then a mysterious black inky figure rising up out of the depths to do something. We don't know. They just haven't given us much on the details of this story. And it largely has been believed that this game has been abandoned just because there has been absolutely no news. And again, it's been in development for over 4 years. However, Quantic Dream has gone under some acquisitions maybe, or some reorganizations of their studio. They've hired a bunch of people. I think they've opened a brand new studio, maybe in Toronto. I can't remember for certain. And over the course of the discussions about these developments, the founder, someone by the name of Cage, was asked about this, and he responded, "Of course, development of Star Wars Eclipse continues, and we are eager to share more with you in the future." And he said that this is the beginning of a new chapter for Quantic Dream. I'm skeptical. If it's taken 4 years to get this far, which doesn't seem like anything has happened, and there's been no more news about this game other than the fact that it's still in development, I really don't count on seeing it. So I'm going to be pleasantly surprised if this ends up on consoles and PCs sometime in the future. I'm just not counting on it. But again, you can go out on the internet and find the old trailer for this game. It's not hard to find. Just Google Star Wars Eclipse or search for it on YouTube, and it's going to come up. And you can see and judge for yourself whether this is something you're excited for or not. And then finally, hate to do it, but we have to end this week's news on a bit of a sad note. October 13th, we lost Drew Struzan, and that may not be familiar to you, but I guarantee you've seen his work. He is the creator of movie posters for such franchises as Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Blade Runner, E.T., Back to the Future, Harry Potter. And if you've been to theaters and you've seen the movies, the special editions for Star Wars, the prequels, also for Star Wars, or Indiana Jones, of those, you've seen his posters out there. He's done over 150 of them. They are iconic. They set the standard in the industry for what a movie poster should be. And they're absolutely fantastic. It's some of the imagery that we all think of when we think of Star Wars, especially when we're thinking of the posters out there. A bunch of people have had the opportunity to comment on his passing. I'll start off with what George Lucas had to say, which was, Drew was an artist of the highest order. His illustrations fully captured the excitement, tone, and spirit of each of my films his artwork represented. His creativity through a single illustrated image opened up a world full of life and vivid color, even at a glance. I was lucky to have worked with him time and time again. Steven Spielberg also used Drew Struzan's work quite a bit for his movies, and he had to say, Drew made event art. His posters made many of our movies into destinations. And the memory of those movies and the age we were when we saw them always comes flashing back just by glancing at his iconic photorealistic imagery. In his own invented style, nobody drew like Drew. And then finally, ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, put out a statement. Our friend and colleague Drew Struzan distilled movie magic into a single iconic image, often the one audiences saw first. The celebrated creator of hundreds of one-sheet movie posters, blending classic portraiture with cinematic montage, passed away October 13th at the age of 78. Our hearts go out to the Struzan family. And they all nailed it right there. And that's just it. Yes, those posters were generally what we saw first. And they all came out in an age where posters were art in the sense that someone was actually sitting down and creating them instead of photoshopping, not to denigrate the work of anyone who's making current posters for movies. But what are current posters for movies? They frequently take photoshopped images and they'll just rearrange them for subsequent posters. And the idea is to get as many of the leads in one poster as possible. Whereas Drew Struzan and his contemporaries tried to tell a bit of a story in their poster, what this movie was going to be about. The posters then were designed to sell you on the story, not just the actors that were behind things. And this photorealistic description that George and Steven and ILM are giving, or nail it right there. These were keepsakes. And I know I still have a couple of the posters that he's done. And I actually got to meet him at Fan Expo Dallas. This was sometime before COVID. I was trying to sit down and remember what year it was. I'm going to have to go back through my phone and see if I can figure it out. But it would have been probably 2018, maybe 2019. And he was there. He had prints of all the various posters that he had. I bought a mini poster from the special edition release of A New Hope and had him autograph that. And he was kind of an interesting guy. I walked up and he just kind of looked at me along with the other people that were at his table, and I looked at some of the prints, and then I asked if I could purchase this one, and he agreed to sign it. And it was a bit of an act. I've heard this time and again from people. He kind of came off at first as standoffish, but once he put down his signature on the poster, it's like, so what's your name? Where you're from? Are you having a good time? And then we talked I can't remember everything we said, but we talked Star Wars a little bit, and it was a nice, fun 15-minute conversation. He could not have been nicer. And I hope you all had the opportunity to meet him as well, if you've been an admirer of his art. I know he typically tried to make himself available. I know he's been, I believe, dealing with Alzheimer's for the past couple of years, and I guess it finally caught up with him. But he will be missed, and it's too bad that we're not going to get any more fresh art from him, so we'll just have to cherish what we have. Of course, our thoughts, prayers, and condolences go out to the Struzan family and all of his fans everywhere. So that's it. That's a look at this week's Star Wars news. Again, I hated to end it on a down note, but Drew Struzan deserved some recognition, and I'd love to hear if you all have any thoughts about his work or if you had a chance to meet him. So reach out to us. I'll give you our contact points here in just a bit. But thank you all for joining us for this episode of Podcast Stardust and my thoughts on the latest Star Wars news. And if you've enjoyed that, I would encourage you to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already. You know how to do that. You're all listening to podcasts. We're all veterans of this by now. And if you want to find our full catalog of shows, the best place you can do that is at retrozap.com. All previous 952 shows, we're on the march to 1,000, getting there pretty soon, can be found there, as well as some other great shows, including Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Case Files, Brews and Blasters, Dork Lair, Doomcast, Enjoy Stuff, Love and Death Robots Plus, Superhero Suite, and my other Star Trek podcast, Work Trails, which is on a very extended hiatus. Again, we appreciate your rating and reviews. Those type of things help the show grow. And one of the best places you can do that is Apple Podcasts. We'd love if you take out 30 seconds and leave us a review there. We also appreciate your social media feedback. So if you want to reach us, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. We have a Pinterest board that Jay runs. Honestly, I'm not even sure what's on it. I just don't use Pinterest. And the show is also available YouTube in an audio-only format and on YouTube Music. We have t-shirts and the like available over on TeePublic, and those have been selling pretty well quite recently. And I'd love to see if you've bought one, which one you got, because we have all our different logo styles. I know I traditionally just use one for our images, but I do like to break out some of the others from time to time. But they're all over there on various color shirts. So if you get one, snap a pic, put it on social media, tag us in it. Love to see it. If you can find Jay and her cosplay work over at Jay Snips Cosplay on Instagram. And normally this is where I tell you about what's coming up on the show, but we've had to shuffle the schedule here just a bit. On Monday, I'm intending to do a listener questions show. I put out the call for questions. There's a little bit of time left to get a question in, and if I don't get it for that show, I'll try to answer it in a future show. But anything you have about the show, anything you have about Star Wars you want to ask us, feel free. And you can do that over on Facebook. You can do it on one of our posts for Instagram. If you want to put it in an iTunes review, and there I will look before I record and see if I can find them. And and then on Wednesday, I haven't decided what's coming up for that show yet, but I'll let you know as soon as I can. With all that having been said, thank you for listening to episode 952 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have the best weekend, and until next time, may the Force be with you.